Chapter 20, dynamically visualize cross-sections from the corridor. Well, I guess you already had a preview on that because I kind of jumped ahead of myself in the last chapter, but let's take a deeper dive, as they say, and look at some of the other tools. Pretty straightforward, really. You can be in any file that the corridor is attached, and you just go to this dynamic sections and say open cross-section view, and just click on your corridor or the alignment. I guess you don't necessarily have to have the corridor. With the alignment, you don't get near the functionality. I don't think that dimensioning works or anything like that. Usually better off to select the corridor over the alignment at this location. Later in the Sheets file, I'll show you there's another way to visualize. There's a couple other ways to visualize cross sections, and with the other way, you do actually select the alignment. But here, we're in this at this location, we select the corridor, and then we click inside of a window. All right, so let's take a little deeper dive here. Let me get my windows arranged so that you can kind of, I wanted to be able to show you that, we can see where we are at in the plan view as we kind of navigate through here. And then we can also, jump around on the cross sections without having to toggle because, by default, depending on what feature definition you have set for the corridor, I believe that's what it is, it'll kind of determine on the spacing as to where you see cross sections by default. And then that would also be included. You can add something we'll get into later, like these key stations and other things. That once you start using those advanced features, you'll see that as you toggle through these cross sections, you'll automatically stop, at those locations there. And again, this is just a visual. There's other ways that we go about putting our cross sections onto sheets and things. This is simply just to, as you're developing your model, just to kind of analyze what's going on and make decisions. But let's just kind of jump around in here and we'll check it out. Let's see. Well, first of all, let's see. I'll show you this. I think by default this cross-section will come in at a 1-to-1 ratio. But if you hold your control down and then also scroll with your roller ball, your roller on the middle of your cursor there, you can change the vertical exaggeration. Or if you want that to be a set amount, like 2 would be kind of common. So you might want to click that down arrow, and where it says vertical exaggeration, you could type in 2, and now you get, it's exactly 2. And regardless of how much you exaggerate, I think that temporary, well, we saw some problems earlier, but mostly I think that temporary dimensioning will still recognize what the actual slope is, regardless of the vertical exaggeration just in this dynamic view. Interesting, yeah. And there we're seeing the same issue that we had last time. Oh, there, and you can see from that side it works. Maybe it's just grabbing the wrong point over here. I'll have to figure out. Maybe it's just finicky. But in any case, you can see, disregard, I guess, the left side, but look at the right side, and you see that it shows it being 2%, regardless of how much I'm exaggerating the vertical. Okay, I'll just right click and remove all those temporary dimensions. What else over here can we show you? As you're toggling through, sometimes a cross section will jump around and you have to it's hard to keep it still, so to speak. And so you could say a couple things you can do. Center it on the backbone, and then even if your cross sections are much wider on one side than the other, and you're toggling through, it kind of keeps it in the middle. Center on off as to whatever your current offset is. Keep that. It just helps you jump through your model without bouncing around too much in the cross section, to where you can easily view the cross section. This is kind of cool. Now you do have to have your all your feature definitions set up properly, and that's another good reason probably why to use the standard IDOT points and components which automatically use the proper feature definitions and this sort of thing. But yeah, pretty cool that even on the fly that it knows where the cuts are and where the fills are, and if you look at this, that's correct. This one I'm not sure what's up with. It's been this way for a long time. Maybe there's a fix to it. But in addition to showing those cuts and fills, you're supposed to be able to see just on the fly what those cuts and fills are, but it does not come in clear, so I don't typically use that. Okay, I'm going to turn that off. As far as navigating around, we've been using like the VCR buttons here. You can key in a particular station. This thing's a little finicky, though. You have to keep your mouse over that number. So 103 plus 00, for instance, takes me right to that cross section, which is pretty cool. If I want to go all the way to the beginning or end, I'm sure you can figure out what these symbols stand for. But then I can also right-click, hold down, and you can look at some of the choices that we have here. We've already looked a little bit at the place horizontal, but we can also place vertical temporary dimensions. And what these are doing, they're grabbing those points from the template. That's how it knows. That's why you're not really snapping to anything. You just move your cursor around, and it's just going to jump from point to point. So you can say, okay, I want to know what the vertical distance is from the edge of pavement to the bottom of the ditch, and accept it. And there it's showing me it's 2.407. It's probably coming up with that because, I think I had a standard ditch depth of 2, but that was probably based off the edge of the shoulder, which is why I'm coming up with that oddball number. And you can do that, with basically between any points. You can check the vertical dimensions, or using the horizontal features, we can check the horizontal. And what's nice, it's not just for this cross section, because all of these cross sections are going to be using the same point. So even if I toggle through the cross section, it's still going to give me that dimension at that location. So even though, like right now we have a standard ditch, but later we'll store a special ditch, so that ditch depth is going to vary. And then as I toggle through, what'll happen is that dimension will change on the fly, depending on where I'm at along the special ditch profile. Okay, one other thing, let me show you that I don't think I realized this at first. There's just, as you've figured out by now, there's so much to know in this. You really start off with the fundamentals, and then as you go, you just start picking up on more and more and more. But another way to move around is pretty cool. Let's see if I can get this to work. I think how that goes. Okay, maybe it's just this. I'm in my selector. I think if I select the corridor. Yeah, there it is. All right. So, I've set up my dynamic cross sections like this. We've gone through it, and as you're sitting here, rather than toggle through the cross sections, what you can do is you go to your element selector, you data point on the corridor, and then kind of zoom out, and you'll see this display here, and that's showing you, where the cross section is. So rather than toggle through, instead I can grab this arrow, hold my mouse button down, and this is pretty nice that you can very quickly analyze anywhere along your model a cross section. So that's pretty cool. I think that's about it for this type of dynamic cross section. When we get to the sheets, I'll show you another way of doing that. That's pretty nice. That just came out with I think the more recent release, and it's a big improvement. So let's end it there.